Thank you for this opportunity to talk a little about repatriation of technologies and the position that we have not just in America, but also in Canada. Both countries have a problem, a set of challenges that we're going to be addressing. And we very adequately covered a lot of those points. So again, as I said, you'll see some of the same points in my presentation that we've already covered and already discussed. We have this is a strategic issue for the United States especially. You know, the United States used to be quite a successful mining nation, and we've lost that. We have lost ground. Certainly Canada has certainly done a better job in preserving its profile, its potential, and has a monstrous horizon on the that's coming for them. So, you know, we're kind of envious of what has happened here and what is happening in Canada. You know, one of the successful elements that I always point to about relationships between the United States and Canada is our success specifically in the nickel market. We would not have had a successful nuclear program for nuclear weapons and nuclear energy in the United States had it not been for Canadian nickel, because that Canadian nickel that came out of Sudbury was the nickel that allowed us to enrich uranium and make uranium-235. So we had to have a good relationship with Canada and sustain that so that we could have the successful nuclear program we had. Because the United States, you know, when we were handing out resources for the world, the United States was not on the nickel list. You know, we got such a tiny amount of material. So we always, in the United States, we've always looked at the success we had in mining in the early part of the 20th century up through the 50s as saying, this is what made the United States a great power. We possibly helped win the World War II with the mining strengths we had and the priorities that we established for our nation. A lot of people don't know or are not aware that we stopped gold mining during World War II so that we could take those mining resources, that mining talent, and reapply it to the wartime needs. So we made the right decisions. It paid off. And certainly when the 50s came back around, we could reestablish the gold mining industry. My family came out of the gold mining industry in Western North Carolina. And one of the first things after World War II is we found out we were out of business again. So, and that never has come back to North Carolina. The issue of the critical materials is a matter of national security. It's a matter of our defense. It's a matter of economic security. It's a matter of energy security. It is a matter of the health and quality of life in the United States. Quite literally, I look at what we have and I say that we can turn on the lights anytime we want based on a mining heritage. Great critical materials position that we've had. And we should be thankful for that. Now, yesterday we talked a little about tariffs, and I want to go revisit tariffs just a little bit because part of the question that we didn't get around to yesterday was, what is this administration up to? You know, you've heard, and many of you have been offended by the fact that the subject of the 51st state has come up. I kind of like William Shatner's solution to this. As a Canadian, he said, wait a minute, what are we talking about, a 51st state? He says, we got to decide whether we're going to make the United States the 11th province or we're going to make it the 4th territory. What are we going to do? And that's a real consideration. But impractical as it is we need that relationship. We need trade. We need a platform upon which we can trade these critical materials and benefit both nations. And that's what we're looking for right now. We've got many more answers than we've got questions right now. Each answer is going to be changing, each based on the political environment and the daily conditions that are being addressed. But we're all waiting to see how this all shakes out. You saw a slide similar to this earlier. This is a slide that speaks to the mining of some critical materials. Starting at the top, rare earths, graphite, lithium, cobalt, nickel, and copper. And you can see there's a big dominant red line here. Any idea who the red line represents? is China. They got a strong position. We also, just on the nickel side, which we spend a lot of time in, you got to look at this blue line on nickel. That's Indonesia. By the numbers that I have, which were good up through about February of this year, it looks like that Indonesia produced about 62% of the world's nickel. That's a dominant position, but it's even greater, of greater significance because of that 62%, a little over half of that was severely influenced by the Chinese and their investments, their operations, and their consumption of the Indonesian nickel for stainless steel. So China is a big player. We've talked about that before. But here's where they really sing the song, and that is in processing of these materials. Top line is rare earths. They're almost at 100% of the processing capabilities of rare earth. Graphite, they are at 100%. Lithium, significant. Cobalt, highly significant. They have the processing advantage. They've had a strategy, they've had a plan, they've had an approach that is well laid out. They've stuck by it, and it's paying off. And quite honestly, there are a few lessons that we can learn from that. Now, this is where we are in the United States. We got 100%, we got, first of all, we come about the definition of the critical materials. These are materials necessary for industry to maintain our defense, our economic, our energy positions. And that's been evaluated by numbers of nations. And I think there's about 9 different critical materials lists around the world right now. I even found out today that CMI has its own list of critical materials, which is great. But we have 12 of these. I got to read sideways here. 12 of these that we are 100% dependent on import. 50% of the other 29 we get from China. China is, again, a dominant producer, a dominant supplier for the United States. And inherently, we have both the geopolitical vulnerability and also the logistical vulnerability that we have to recognize is present in this market. This is again, the red lines, China. Pink lines, China. Gray lines, everybody else. We are really, really, really vulnerable. That's just the market situation for us. And I think we are coming about to address these issues, both from a standpoint of the raw materials, the mining, the exploration. And again, I think we need to have that strong relationship with Canada to really balance and solve that problem. In China, again, this is not a new program. China has been about the Belt and Roads program for a little over 35 years. This is a program that they implemented in many undeveloped or third world nations. Lots of development, a lot of investment, a lot of loans, a lot of third world countries that are really, really handcuffed right now on their ability to function as an economy based on the obligations that they have. China has repeatedly shown that they will weaponize that position. They will use it. They will cut us off on certain materials, and they've done that for, I think, either 5 or 7 different minerals right now. And it's something that they're going to use for their both political and philosophical position. It is a stranglehold on our industry, and it's one that I think we all need to be working toward the solution, the resolution. But again, you hear me say that there are many things about this program from the Chinese that we admire. It was well thought out. They have stuck to their plan, and there are no surprises. This is a plan that was predicted. This was laid out that they were going to do it this way 30 years ago, and they have succeeded. Now, in the United States, we have had a recognition of this program. It's been bipartisan. We've had a recognition starting with the first Trump administration that we We recognized the vulnerability in the critical materials issue. That was sustained again by the Biden administration. And again, just a little over 30 days ago, the Trump administration issued a new executive order asking for a reappraisal of our critical materials situation. They're going to assess where we are, what we need, and what we can do to get out of this hole. It's all wrapped in the issue of a national security risk, and as such, the provision under which they're doing this assessment is pretty focused, pretty restrictive on its application. We have a chain of value that we need to recognize that all fits together, some of which is getting a greater emphasis certainly than others right now. Exploration, extraction, processing, products, and recycling. Now, I think we're doing a pretty good job in exploration, especially here in Canada. You're getting a very good definition of where you have assets, where you have resources, and how available that may be. The extraction, that's going to be pending based on whatever the studies and the feasibility determines. The processing part is where I think we have the greatest vulnerability, both in Canada and also in the United States. We don't have processing capability. You have in Canada, you have, for example, nickel refining. In the United States, we have zero today. Cobalt, same thing. So we need additional resources and we need additional processes to solve this resource problem. Now, the products, if we have the supply, those products are going to fall. They will come along. Many innovations that are possible to us today, and we heard a great example from Guy talking about scandium. There are people waiting on scandium. They have wonderful performance from the scandium aluminum combinations, but we don't have scandium for them today. If he succeeds in getting more scandium, we're going to see more products that take advantage of the technology and the new materials development that's possible with this material. On the recycling, again, we have a big hole in the bag here on recycling. We understand how to recycle these batteries. We understand how to recycle the materials. We do not have a logistical system to collect that recycled material and bring it back together again. We would depend on the scrap industry in the United States. And the scrap industry doesn't think this is worthwhile. There's not enough of it. It's too difficult to separate. It's too complex from a regulatory agency, a regulatory standpoint. So how will we accomplish this recycling? Now, we'd love to have all the recycled nickel cadmium batteries we could get. We can process that all day long, but you got to give me enough to where we have enough for a batch, enough for a process run. And right now, collecting that throughout the United States would be very, very difficult. That collection system does not exist at all. Now, it can exist because we do that in the United States now for nickel. A little less than 50% of the nickel we consume in the United States each year is scrap materials. A little less than half. So we only, as much nickel as we consume, which is somewhere around 2.6 million tons, that material, only half of that is really new material. So, and that's what we get, 40% of that comes from Canada. The rest of it comes from other resources around the world. So we have the ability to establish a network and start collecting this. But again, we got to be about that because right now we're not ready to recycle materials. And there, again, I applaud some of the technologies and some of the investments that have been made because they are genuinely innovative and they are very reliable. But, having an innovative system that can do 1,000 pounds a day is not a practical consideration for industry. One of the great motivations for the critical materials demand under the Biden administration was the fact that we were recognizing a clean energy transition. We were going to be going to electric vehicles. Certainly the Trump administration has shut that down. That's not going to happen under the Trump administration. Yes, the United States market is going to drop off. We're going to sell a lot of hybrids, but the potential that we recognized uh, is not present today. It's going to be back. It's going to be back in 4 years. And in the meantime, the rest of the world is proceeding with development of electric vehicles. They're proceeding with production of materials. The battery materials that are coming out are designed for, what's coming out of China, what's coming out of Tesla. These products are developing. It's just not going to be selling any of them in the United States, not for a few years. Personally, I think it's inevitable that we're going to see a revitalization of the electric vehicle potential, but it's going to take a little time. Stand by. We'll be back with EVs for you later. Again, we've got to have critical materials to make any of these energy transitions available. And to go back to the point I was making before about the Trump administration, if you want a good idea of exactly where the Trump administration is going, I would recommend to you two books written by the same guy. There's a fellow by the name of Ned Mamula, Mamula. Ned has written two books about the wealth of America, accessing that wealth, and why we are not wealthy today. Why can we not access these materials? I would strongly recommend Google those two books. They are excellent stories of where the wealth is and what it's going to take for us to get there. Today, as I stand here right now, Ned is in congressional hearings in Washington to become the director of the U.S. Geological Survey. So if you want to see where this administration is going to be going, look at philosophically the story that Ned tells in these two books. The later book that he has written, which just came out last year, I've gotten a comment in front of the book. This is an excellent story about how we cannot achieve energy independence or the energy transition because of our deficiencies in the critical materials area. Very important message. So I could stand here up all day and tell you about Ned's books and what it has, but there's a great lesson, and I believe that you'll find this administration is following the philosophy he has presented. Circularity of solutions. The new element of this critical materials market that we need to consider and apply is the issue of a closed circuit, the recirculation, the optimal harvesting of these materials. It's a new concept of circularity that becomes part of the business plan. It becomes part of the material management, material handling. And circularity is going to be necessary from the standpoint of the initial extraction right through the recycling and recovery. Designing products for circularity, designing processes for circularity to optimize the recovery and also minimize the waste materials that we're generating. It's a very important concept that we're going to see more of. We do need to have a infrastructure that supports the circularity concept. That does not exist today, so we want to be able to, at the same time, be able to facilitate this practice. Okay, repatriation. How do we do this? What is it going to take to bring back the processing of these materials, reestablish it? Number one, we're going to have to expand exploration, especially in the United States. Now, the federal government in the United States has spent and is continuing to spend a significant amount of money on exploration. That's the priority right now. They get much more money going into exploration than they do developing processes, any research and development on areas aside from rare earths. Now, yesterday there was a comment made in Mel's session, and it was related to, was there a substitution program for rare earths? And the answer from the panel was no, there's not. But there is. There is a program under the Department of Energy, which is spending about $250 million. It's run $250 million per year. It's run out of Ames Laboratory, and they're being rather successful. They've got some great innovative science that they're applying, and we can't afford it. It's too expensive. I've actually met with the folks at Oak Ridge National Lab. I'm fascinated with their technology. I love the science, and I'm not spending a penny on it because we just cannot afford it. And some additional focus of that program is needed. I think they'll get there. I think they'll come up with some cheaper options, the same kind of cheap options that I think is evolving right now on electric vehicles with the success of the sodium battery, the sulfur battery, and even the silica-based battery. So there's options coming. How long it's going to be before we get there, I don't know. We want to accelerate responsible project development with good investors, good plans, and very competent people. All of that is needed. We need a sustainable infrastructure in many areas, especially in Canada. You got some areas that are wonderful sites for development, but we've got to have infrastructure to support them. We also need to promote a workforce in the communities that will prosper the communities. Here in Canada, you have a very successful First Nation program that supports the community. We need the same thing in the United States, and right now, that community is viewed as an obstacle for project development. That's going to be a lot of litigation. There's going to be a lot of time spent on that and a lot of money just to get over that perceived obstruction. Processing, refining, the metallurgical processes for separation, all of that is going to be necessary in a new realm, a new set of investments that's going to be needed. The processes that we apply as our company are innovative and new. We don't use new chemistry. We're still using the Mon chemistry from 135 years ago. But we do modify, we do integrate, we do a new systems engineering to bring that forward as a more productive system. So that means a new set of investments. That new set of investments will displace the conventional systems that we're all familiar with that have a significant environmental burden, that have a significant cost, and the new options are optional and can be scaled down, which is going to be a big feature on capital investment. And the final element you heard me touch on before was the materials recovery and recycling. Very important component, one that we need to integrate into the total industry solution. Thank you.